It is time to get you set for a great week of college football. Week 8 of the Big 12 season is here. I'm Pete Mundo on Heartland College Sports. We cover the Big 12. We appreciate you being a part of the show. We'll have you set, give you the top storylines for all the games. If you're new, thanks for being here. Whether it's on the YouTube channel, hit that thumbs up right below the video. Subscribe if you have not yet. No one's got better Big 12 coverage than us. And, of course, as always on the podcast, hit that 5-star rating and review. And thank you, as always, to our radio affiliates. I will give you picks at the end of the show. But first, let's just talk about the top storylines here in the Big 12 Conference this week. And I want to start off with some pretty big quarterback news that is taking place this week. We've got a change at Utah. Cam Rising done for the season. They're, of course, getting set to take on TCU this weekend, so it's going to be all up to Isaac Wilson. And then you've got Garrett Rangel. He's also in for Oklahoma State, so you got to watch that. They take on BYU on Friday. And, of course, crazy to say, but Arizona State going without Sam Leavitt. What's that going to look like? They turn to Jeff Sims, who's got experience from his time at Georgia Tech and Nebraska. Now, I'm not saying Sam Leavitt's not doing a great job, but I do believe the drop-off that people think is going to exist for Arizona State is not going to be there like a lot of people believe. Oh, well, the starting quarterback's out. That's a big deal. Well, yes, it's a big deal, but I really am continuing to buy in to what this Arizona State team is building and what they have, and they can still very much go win this game against Cincinnati coming up this weekend. So you've got the quarterback changes. And don't forget about Zion Chris. He'll be starting his first game for Houston coming up this weekend as well as they come off the bye week taking on Kansas on the road. So there's quarterback changes all over the conference. Also, you don't know what UCF is going to be doing after they've got a quarterback game of musical chairs happening. So new faces at quarterback all over the Big 12 this week in Week 8. That is a huge deal. What do you have? 5 quarterbacks right there who are going to be new faces in some capacity in the Big 12 Conference this weekend. So that will play a huge role. You think it's hard now to bet the Big 12? Try to figure it out when there's new quarterbacks all over the field. It's insane when you put it into that kind of perspective, right? So now you look elsewhere around this conference and you say to yourself, will the teams at the top start to separate themselves? That's the other big thing I'm watching this weekend. Who will start to separate themselves? Does somebody have that let-up game that no one sees coming? We know what all these teams have. Everybody's in action this weekend. There's no bye weeks this weekend. That's huge. You've got BYU taking on Oklahoma State on Friday night. Late night, Provo, BYU going up against a downtrodden Oklahoma State team. But Mike Gundy, when you least expect it, goes out there and wins a big game. Is BYU kind of resting on its laurels a little bit? I'm not saying they are, but that's a storyline that you have to follow going into this Week 8. And then also Iowa State. Big win at West Virginia last week. Do they take that foot off the pedal a little bit? They've got a UCF team where they're 2 touchdown favorites. UCF is struggling mightily. You could argue that UCF's season is on the line if they want to stay in Big 12 contention. Now, they don't have a quarterback right now, so they've got bigger fish to fry. But you get the point, right? It doesn't really matter. What you've got is a situation where 2 teams right now in this conference are undefeated at 6-0. And those 2 teams are rightfully so in a 12-team college football playoff thinking, why not us? Why can't we be that playoff team? But they can't have that let-up game when both teams are big favorites going into Week 8. And then you've got the other 3-0 team in conference play. They're 5-1 overall, and that's Texas Tech. Is Texas Tech a team that is going to continue to prove itself as being for real? Now, I don't know if we're going to find out because they're playing Baylor this weekend, and Baylor's 0-3 in the conference and is not a very good team. But Baylor's been in their games. Like, say what you want about Baylor, and I'm done betting Baylor, by the way. I bet them in weeks 4, 5, and 6, and I lost every bet with the Baylor Bears. So shame on me. I'm not losing any more money on Baylor. I'm done with the Bears. All right? You can bet them. I'm not betting Baylor anymore. But Baylor is a team that lost to Colorado because of a Hail Mary, came back against BYU to lose by 1 score, and then, yes, got blown out by Iowa State, but had a 14-3 lead in that game. So what is Baylor? And what did they figure out, if anything, coming out of that bye week? We'll find out. Same thing for Texas Tech, though. I mean, Tech, as much as they're sitting there at 3-0 and should be feeling very good about themselves, they've been fortunate with a pretty easy schedule, although I will say that Arizona State win looks better by the week. Can't take that away from them. But they do have 2 very winnable games, Baylor and TCU coming up, where Texas Tech is going to be disappointed if it's not 7-1 going into the month of November. They should be. I mean, if you're a Texas Tech fan, you should be disappointed if this team is not 7-1 when we turn the calendar to the next month. That's undebatable. And then you say to yourself, as you look at the Big 12 this week and you just bounce around the conference at some of these games, you say to yourself, who are those teams in the middle? Who is the 2-1 team that's going to separate itself? Kansas State, Arizona State, Cincinnati, Colorado, West Virginia. You know what's great? A bunch of these 2-1 teams are playing each other. And ask anybody, 3-1 feels a lot better than 2-2 in league play. And look at how this matches up. I mean, this is so great for the Big 12. Kansas State is playing West Virginia. They're both 2-1. Arizona State plays Cincinnati. They are both 2-1 in the conference. And then you have Colorado, who's playing 1-2, Arizona on the road. But of the 5 2-1 teams, 4 of them are playing each other. So that separation is going to happen. And you're going to look at this game, Arizona State, Cincinnati. One of these teams is going to be 3-1. And they're going to be going into late October saying, we are in the hunt for a Big 12 championship. And nobody in their right mind would have thought Cincinnati or Arizona State would have been in the mix for a Big 12 championship run 2 months ago. The loser is going to be like, dang it, we're coming back down to earth. And then the West Virginia-Kansas State game. The loser of this game is going to be crushed. The loser is going to feel like they're way behind the 8 ball and they thought they were going to be in the mix. Both these teams had Big 12 championship game aspirations coming into the season. Tech had its best, or West Virginia had its best year under Neil Brown last season. Kansas State, obviously, a lot of hype. Avery Johnson, DJ Giddens, Dylan Edwards. We know that Chris Kleiman has built a team that more or less expects to be in the hunt for a Big 12 title every single year, and that is not unreasonable based on what he's built. So the loser of that game in Morgantown is going to be saying, gosh dang it, we need to let another one slip away. And if you're Neil Brown, you've got to start beating some ranked teams. Neil Brown is 3-15 at West Virginia against ranked teams. That's just bad for a solid program. Like, it's not a team that's always at the bottom. West Virginia is historically a very good college football program. I would say historically a top 25 to top 30 college football program. And to be 3-15 on his watch against ranked teams is just not a good number. And he's been getting some flack this week from the fan base. They're starting to push back. He's had some silly comments about, hey, come out, have a good time, enjoy a tailgate. Like, that ain't sitting well with the West Virginia faithful. And nor should it, based on the expectations this program fairly has for itself. I don't believe that West Virginia fans have unreasonable expectations for this program. I don't think they do. I think they got reasonable expectations on this team being year in, year out, not in the top 10, not in the top 15, but a solid top 25 contender in the Big 12. That's what I believe that this team should be year in, year out. And if they can't get there this year, you're going to wonder when exactly that happens. All right. So on the flip side, some of the other storylines I'm watching around the league this week is the teams coming off a bye week that are not in a good position. A lot of the bad teams, at least based on record in the conference, had bye weeks last week. KU had a bye. Baylor had a bye. Oklahoma State had a bye. TCU had a bye. And Houston had a bye. All down near the bottom of the Big 12 standings. So Did those teams learn anything during their bye week? Did Jalen Daniels use a couple of weeks of practice to start getting back in a groove? They're taking on a Houston team that's got a new quarterback, of course, in Zion Chris, who looked very good when he played 2 weeks ago, and they went out and beat TCU on a Friday night. Baylor, we talked about them against Texas Tech. What are they starting to figure out, if anything? How hot is Dave Aranda's seat? How much hotter could it be if they have a bad loss to Texas Tech? TCU, Sonny Dykes has not had a lot of answers for the issues this team is dealing with right now. Does he show up? Does his team show up in a big way this weekend when TCU goes on the road and plays a Utah team that is now without Cam Rising and is turning to Isaac Wilson at quarterback? All those things are questions that will be answered during this Week 8 slate. And that's what's going to make this a really great Friday and Saturday of college football in this conference. And it is also our first week where we have 8 conference games in the Big 12. We've had a lot of bye weeks the last couple of weeks. So this is now the first 8-game week of the Big 12 football season, which is going to make this a lot of fun. And we finally get back to some 11 a.m. games. We didn't have an 11 a.m. game the last couple of weeks. Arizona State, Cincinnati, it's on ESPN+. That stinks. But outside of that, we at least have an 11 a.m. game in the Big 12 this week. And that's going to be a lot of fun to get back into that group, because when you don't have that game till 2:30, I don't know about you, but when you don't have that game to watch until 2:30, man, Saturday just drags. Does it not? Maybe some of you don't watch 11 a.m. games, or unless your team's in it, you don't watch an 11 a.m. game. But something tells me if you're here on this show, you probably do. So that's one that I'm looking at, and I'm saying to myself, man, at least I got something for that 11 a.m. Central kickoff. Although I suppose now that we have Big 12 fans in like every time zone in the country, 11 a.m., when I talk about that, obviously, I mean Central Time. I'm Pete Mundo. We're Heartland College Sports. It is so great to have you here as a part of the show. Thank you for being here. If you're on the YouTube channel, well, you know what to do. Thumbs up, subscribe. Same thing with the podcast. Thank you for doing that. And as always, we appreciate our radio affiliates. Let me give you 3 picks now for Week 8 in the Big 12. Quick drink, and we'll keep it going. I should have put a sticker over that can so you didn't see the logo. I don't like to give away free advertising like that, but shame on me. I didn't think of it till late. All right, here we go. I've got a lock, an underdog, and a bad bet for you. The picks went 2-1 last week. I hit Cincinnati +3 at UCF. I hit Colorado +4.5 against Kansas State, and I lost Arizona +4 against BYU. For this week, I've got 3 more picks for you. My underdog, Arizona State +5 against Cincinnati. So what happened here is Sam Leavitt, it was announced, was going to miss the game, and a bunch of money poured in on Cincinnati. To me, that's a mistake. I don't believe the drop-off to Jeff Sims is what some people are making it out to be. And a lot of people also are looking at this game, and they are saying what? Well, when teams travel 2 time zones this year, it has not been good for them. I'm just looking at this, and I'm saying to myself, Cincinnati's been solid, right? We know what they are. We know what they've been. But they have not played the schedule. They have not played the quality opponents that Arizona State has played so far this year. Cincinnati beat a bad Houston team when Donovan Smith was still at quarterback. They beat a banged-up and UCF team that didn't have a quarterback last week. They lost to Texas Tech. Arizona State also lost to Tech, but beat KU and then got a big win over Utah this past week. And by the way, that game was on a Friday night, so they've got an extra day of rest, which should not be overlooked. Arizona State has been great against the spread, 5-1 in their last 6 games. Meantime, Cincinnati, how about this for a little tidbit for you? Cincinnati is 3-11 against the spread in their last 14 home games. Considering the home field advantage of Nippert Stadium, and it is very loud at Nippert Stadium, considering that home field advantage, that is a really underwhelming number. But the biggest reason here for me is that I believe this Arizona State defense can travel and can really make things difficult for Cincinnati. Arizona State's defensive efficiency is second best in the Big 12, behind BYU and ahead of Iowa State. I mean, that's damn impressive. And you've got a Cincinnati team that offensively has been in the top 3 in terms of just overall offensive efficiency, which is impressive. But I don't think they've played a defense like Arizona State to date. In fact, I know they haven't played a defense like Arizona State to date. They played some of the worst defenses in the Big 12. They played UCF at the very bottom. Tech has been okay, middle of the pack. And, Houston also middle of the pack. But this is by far the best defense that Cincinnati will have faced so far this season. And for Arizona State, I think that defense will keep them very much in this game. And then I'm also looking at Arizona State's rushing game to step up, and that's where Cam Skattebo comes into the equation here. This Arizona State rushing attack is averaging over 5 yards a carry. That's third right now in the Big 12 Conference, 193 yards a game. And by the way, these are all throughout conference play. I don't use the overall data because the non-conference games always skew the numbers for the most part. So Arizona State's third in the Big 12 in yards per carry in 3 conference games, right? That's pretty darn impressive. Cincinnati is getting crushed on the ground. They are giving up 5.3 yards a carry. That is third worst in the Big 12 Conference. So give me Cincinnati to cover the 5 points as my underdog of the week. Next up, I'll give you a bad bet, all right? My bad bet is TCU +3 at Utah. I know TCU's coming off a bye. I know that Cam Rising's out. I'm not touching TCU. I'm just not doing it. I don't trust him. I'm not convinced Sonny Dykes has a feel for this team. Texas Tech, or TCU, is 1-6 against the spread in their last 7 games. Now, Utah's not been good. They've been 1-4 in their last 5 games against the spread. So that's not good for Utah. But I'm just telling you, I have such little faith in TCU right now. And a bunch of money poured in on TCU this week, once again, because of the quarterback situation at Utah. But it's not like Isaac Wilson hasn't been playing. I mean, he started a bunch of games. He's been playing. It's not like you're pulling a guy right off the bench who has no idea what he's doing. That's not the case for Isaac Wilson. He's home. It's a late night game that overwhelmingly benefits Utah in this spot. TCU has not gone into this environment before in Salt Lake City. So while there's more bets coming in on TCU, it's all driven by just, Cam Rising's out, so I'm going to bet the underdog. I'm not doing that here. I would not touch TCU -3. I will go on the other side of this, and I will take Utah -3. So the bad bet that I've got in the Big 12 this week is going to be TCU +3. Don't touch it. I'm on the other side, Utah -3. And then my lock of the week. It's dicey because I'm going with the road team as a favorite. But if you've been watching the show, you might know where I'm going here. I alluded to it earlier. And that is Kansas State -3 at West Virginia. West Virginia doesn't beat good teams. Neil Brown doesn't beat good teams. There's nothing to suggest that is going to begin on Saturday. Kansas State right now is doing an outstanding job, especially on the ground. They are the best rushing team in the Big 12. Now, you might say to yourself, West Virginia's got a good run defense, and they have played very good run defense in the Big 12. No doubt about it, they have. They're right now second in the Big 12 in yards allowed per carry at 3.6. However, they have not seen a rushing attack like what they are about to see. They bottled up Ollie Gordon. That was great. Oklahoma State stinks. Kansas was still trying to figure itself out when they met a couple of weeks ago. What I saw from West Virginia is a team that is vulnerable on both sides of the ball. I saw them get bottled up by the Iowa State defense last week, and I'm not convinced that's going to be any different against this Kansas State team. Their best bet is to let Garrett Green try to work the ball down the field because Kansas State's secondary is where it struggles. But running the ball, Kansas State has the best rush defense in the Big 12. They're giving up 2.5 yards a carry on the ground and 63 yards a game. That's half of what West Virginia's given up on the ground. So that's how good that run defense has been. And if you've got to allow Garrett Green to try to win the game through the air, that's not what they want to do. West Virginia does not want to play from behind. That's not how they're built. They're built to use the run to set up the pass, not the other way around. So give me Kansas State as my lock of the week, -3 in the Big 12 Conference for this matchup in Week 8 against the West Virginia Mountaineers. And I will also add this, while West Virginia continues to struggle against good teams, they are also 2-4 against the spread in their last 6 games. I'll take Chris Kleiman. So my lock of the week is Kansas State -3 against West Virginia. My underdog is Arizona State +5 at Cincinnati. And my bad bet, TCU +3 at Utah. That means I'm on Utah -3. I'm Pete Mundo on HeartlandCollegeSports.com. Thank you, as always, for being here, for being a part of the show. We appreciate you. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up on the video. It might sound silly if that's how you consume the show, but it is a huge way to help us keep growing. And boy, you have done an amazing job of that. So thank you. Everything we do is free. That's the only thing I ask. Hit the thumbs up, subscribe. Also, same thing on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Go Big 12. Enjoy Week 8. We'll talk to you soon. We've got the reaction show on Sunday. Another reason you got to subscribe to HeartlandCollegeSports.com, and we'll see you on the website and on the forums. Have a great day.